Hey everybody, it's Galmadex and welcome back to some Magic Arena. Today I'll be playing a sealed event of the Strixhaven format. I figure I'll start doing probably 2 drafts, then 1 sealed as my general release schedule. And that is because I do want to make sure to get some sealed practice in before the Magic Arena Strixhaven Sealed Open coming May 8th. For those that haven't heard, that will be the same as basically the Kaldheim Arena Open was, where it's a high stakes event. Anybody can join in. It does cost quite a bit of gems. It was like 4,000 or something like that last time. And if you make it through day 1, then in day 2 you're eligible to win cash prizes if you make it to like 7 or 8 wins in day 2 of that event. So that'll be just a big high stakes competitive sealed event. So I'm excited to try my hand at that again. So we'll definitely need to scatter in a little bit of sealed practice for the Strixhaven limited format. So let's open these packs, see what we've got, and see what we can build. And it immediately obviously looks like we can build a pretty sweet Prismari deck, but unfortunately with the Strixhaven format, you don't get to see all of your rares when you just open them up because of the Mystical Archives cards being in every pack and multiple of those being rares. As you can see, 4 more rares in the sealed pool. So this is not a good indicator of where all of our powerful rares lie. This is where like half of them are, but definitely Crackle with Power and Time Warp both being really fun, really insane kind of bomby effects for a Prismari deck on some high mana like mythic sorceries. Draconic Intervention is fantastic, being a Wrath effect if you have an instant or sorcery of a high enough mana cost in Grave, and Prismari decks can definitely do that, and even Memory Lapse, probably pretty solid in Limited even, as it does slow your opponent down a lot. It's kind of like the thing that puts a spell back into their hand, except this one puts it on top of their library, so they basically have to skip their next draw step as well, so Memory Lapse would be a card I'd be excited to try as well. And Flame Scroll Celebrant, a 2-mana 2/1 with a good fire breathing effect, 2 mana to give it +2/+0 until end of turn. Definitely a solid card there as well, but probably the weakest of all of the red-blue rares. Although the Silver Quill card here, Selfless Glyph Weaver and Deadly Vanity, is quite powerful as well. Does cost a ton of mana to cast Deadly Vanity, but it's for a ridiculous effect. Choose 1 creature or planeswalker, so ideally you just choose whatever your best card is, and then just destroy everything else. Very, very good bomby card there. It is just a ton of mana. And the Selfless Glyph Weaver, kind of the opposite of that effect. You get to exile the Glyph Weaver to save the rest of your creatures this turn. Just give them all indestructible, save them from a board wipe, save them from any sort of combat that's happening. Really solid card there as well, but if we just have a million red and blue rares, it's not super likely we'll get to play that nice Silver Quill card. So we'll see where the rest of our rares lie. The first thing I like to do in most limited formats is to check out where our rares are, just to see where the most exciting, splashy, powerful effects are, and then after I see that, that is when I start looking at the rest of what we have, seeing where our best cards lie. And wow, Prismari command, another incredible reason to be in Prismari. The cheaper commands, like Prismari commands, are really, really powerful, especially the earlier that you can cast them. So they're not the greatest splashes, although this one is like a decent removal spell in the mid game, but definitely not the kind of card that you want to be stuck off the mana from casting until the late game. So if you're a dedicated Prismari deck, if blue and red are the core of your colors, that's where this is going to be by far the most powerful, and it's really nice, just very efficient. 3 mana, instant speed, 2 to a target, and you get to draw 2, discard 2. That's what it's going to be doing most of the time, but it does give you that flexibility as well of getting the treasure token, destroying an artifact when you randomly need those effects. So obviously right off the bat, 6 rares in Prismari, every single one at least playable, maybe the weakest being Memory Lapse, but I've never played this card before in my entire life, but it looks pretty solid to me at first glance, so we'll see there. And it looks like the rest of our rares, though, are in Silver Quill, so that'd be an option as well. Shale, the Dean of Radiance, has been an incredibly powerful card for me in the past. The very first draft I ever did of this format was a Lorehold deck where I first picked Shale, and it used their ability to really great effect. A 1/1 Flying Vigilance that is going to ping your opponent every turn and put a +1/+1 counter on every creature that you play from that point on, as long as you're tapping Shale each turn. With the Vigilance, you can still hit with Shale and tap it, so that's really good. And then Embrose, Dean of Shadow here can keep making your cards bigger with the +1/+1 counter ability and let you draw a bunch of cards if you've got like a +1/+1 counter themed deck, or if Embrose just keeps putting counters on things uncontested for a while. So really solid card. And we already spoke about the Glyphweaver and Deadly Vanity, so these two modal cards definitely really solid for the Silver Quill deck. I don't think either of these are incredible splashes if we're just splashing in like the white to be Prismari splashing in a bit of Lorehold. Although, yeah, Shale's not an incredible slash because Shale is really powerful in the early game. Splash cards are only going to consistently be able to be cast in the late game, so you really prefer if you're splashing something in that it is still a powerful effect in the late game, and I don't think Shale really is. Shale's just really, really good in the early game, so Shale's not a great splash. And Selfless Glyphweaver, also kind of just 3 mana 2/3 with the situational ability there. Not a great splash either. Ephemerate is a fun effect to draft around. Don't know if we'll have enough stuff just in a sealed pool to work with that. Just giving you your enter the battlefield effects multiple times by blinking one of your creatures, and then the rebound means that you get to blink one of your creatures again the turn after you do that. So pretty fun to try to draft around, but not really something that I think will be likely to have a bunch of combos within sealed. So fingers crossed here, really hoping that we have the support in terms of commons and uncommons in blue and red to just slam a Prismari deck down here, because that is where our powerful reds are. But as always, I will be looking through each college and then each color to see where our strongest stuff lies. So let's check out our colleges. So I don't really like Square Up. This is like a worse giant growth most of the time, because it can turn, the best this can do is like turn a 1/1 into a 3/3 until end of turn. So I really am just not a big fan of this card. It's designed this way so that it works really well with like fractals, but fractals are already usually so large that you don't really need to use any pump spells on them. The idea is that on a fractal token, this is +4/+4 until end of turn, but that's still on par with Titanic growth, which was never super exciting in previous limited formats. So I'm really just not a fan of Square Up. Biomathematician I am a fan of. A single copy, not so exciting, just a 2/2 that makes a 1/1. However, with enough other fractal synergies it could be good, and we do have 2 fractal summonings, so it seems okay there. Eureka Moment's a pretty fantastic instant, draw 2, put a land out. Aether Helix, a great kind of slow card, but sealed that does tend to be kind of slow, at least slower than draft, so Aether Helix should be super fine. And this format in general has been a little slower than usual. Yeah, just some okay stuff in Prismari. Maybe if our green and blue just happen to be incredible, that would be okay. Or Quandrix there. Getting all of my colleges mixed up. I'm still very bad at that. So Quintorius in Lorehold is super fun and super cool. If we get a bunch of stuff that brings things out of the grave, makes things leave the grave, that would be cool. We've got good lessons here. Double Spirit Summoning for the Lorehold. We got the Pledge Mage. Yeah, we just have like solid commons in Lorehold, but nothing super exciting. Honestly, it's looking like the most exciting of the colleges in terms of our commons and uncommons is probably Witherbloom, because Blood Researchers can be very powerful very quickly, so that's really cool. Moldering Karok combos with those kind of cards well, with Trample and Lifelink, and Mortality Spear is just a great removal spell. Infuse with Vitality makes one of your cheap creatures trade up and then come back onto the field again, and gains you some life, so it's good with Enter the Battlefield effects, it's good with life gain triggers like a Blood Researcher. And double Witherbloom Pledge Mage is pretty solid as well, just some 5/5s that do also give you those consistent life gain triggers. So pretty good stuff there. Our Prismari rares, well, our Prismari rares are great, as we've seen. We have Prismari Command, and then we have, blue and red rares. The commons and uncommons, we have Elemental Masterpiece, definitely good when you have the cards to reduce the cost, or just a generally controlling deck to make it to that 7 mana consistently, and Elemental Summoning being a pretty fantastic lesson, so pretty good stuff in Prismari. And we've got a decent amount of things in Silver Quill, but they're not that great. Like, Fracture doesn't destroy the most important card type in Limited, which is creatures. The Humiliate is pretty solid. choosing your opponent's best card in hand, making them discard it, and getting a little bit of a buff on one of your creatures, getting a +1/+1 counter there. Not a super big fan of Exhilarating Elocution unless you are very, very aggressive. One of your creatures permanently gets 2 +1/+1 counters, and the rest just get +1/+1 till end of turn. The fact that this is sorcery speed is what really kind of kills it. If this were instant speed, it would be pretty absurd, pretty brutal. But at sorcery speed, it's pretty mediocre, only for the very specific, very aggressive deck. Spiteful Squad's a pretty solid blocker. Definitely very good against the Quandrix decks with their just massively absurd creatures, because you trade this off with Death Touch and then get some +1/+1 counters on another one of your creatures. And Owlin Shield Mage is kind of mediocre, but Rise of Extus is real solid removal if you can afford the 6-mana removal spells, because you remove one of their cards and you draw a card from your sideboard with the Learn effect. Very, very strong. So that's pretty good there. Wow, our green is incredibly light. 2 Leyline Invocation, 1 Master Symmetrist, 1 Cultivate, and a Tangle Trap. That's not me listing the good green cards, that's me listing every single green card. We have 5 green cards in our entire sealed pool. Don't really think that any green deck is really going to be a thing here, unless green is just the splash and we have a lot of support in the other color that we're going with. So we're working our way backwards in terms of colors. Today it looks like Blood Age General, just a solid filler 2/2. The Flame Scroll Celebrant we've already went on about. Enthusiastic Study. It's good with enough good lessons to go with it. If you have pretty great lessons, you could run this in almost any deck. Otherwise, if you just have okay lessons, you want to be somewhat aggressive. I think I'll throw them in for now. Tome Shredder is always a great time. The 3-mana 2/2 haste, so it pings in for 2 if they don't have a creature out, and then it just gets slowly larger throughout the game, becoming much larger than it should be for only 3 mana. Draconic Intervention, we already talked about, just a solid Wrath effect. Ardent Dustspeaker is pretty great as well. 5 mana for a 3/4, so its stat line in terms of power and toughness is a bit mediocre, but if you get the triggers off of this, this is awesome. You get to throw one of your instants or sorceries engraved on bottom of your library, and then exile the top 2 cards of the library, and you can play them this turn, so that's what we call an impulsive draw effect. It's a draw 2, but you have to play the cards you just drew immediately, or they go away. Definitely pretty solid card advantage, the kind of thing red doesn't get super often, so that's great. Crackle with Power, obviously insane. The worst that this card does is 5 mana for 5 damage to one target, and once you hit 8 mana, then it's doing 10 damage to 2 targets, right? Yeah, which is just bonkers, and if you get anything above that, you're just living the dream. Explosive Welcome. If we have the support, like the cost reduction or a really grindy kind of deck, this can be fine. It can kill 2 things off of 1 card, which is always good. 5 to a target, 3 to another. Throw it in for now. Just throw in every red card for now, and we'll see what we have in blue. Except Dragon's Approach, we're not playing this. This card is very much made for just constructed. You have to have a million copies of Dragon's Approach for this to ever do anything, except for 3 damage to your opponent. You have to exile this and 4 cards named it from your graveyard in order to get the big effect out of this. So that's just impossible and limited. So let's see what we have in black now. We have Arrogant Poet, fine aggressive card. Flunk is a great removal spell. Hunt for Specimens is a solid learn spell. Double Umbral Juke for good sacrifice outlets. Sacrifice removal spells. Yeah, a few actually pretty solid things in black, but again, nothing quite on par with the absurd rares that we've got in blue and red. And I'm taking a quick peek at white right now. White actually does look really solid too. I think that this sealed pool actually may have a backup Silver Quill deck, because we saw we had several we had a couple decent Silver Quill commons: Humiliates, Spiteful Squad, Shield Mage, and Rise of Extus. And then some solid black cards. Not a lot of them, but the ones that we have are good. Poet, Flunk, Hunt for Specimens, Double Juke are all good. And then the white in the sealed pool is actually pretty good. We have Shale, as we said before. We have Selfless Glyphweaver. And we have 3 Combat Professors, 1 Expel. So just a really solid flying threat. Great removal spell. Yeah, white actually does look pretty good. but again, I think Prismari is just stacked up enough that that is what I would prefer to play here if we can. So I need to run 3 more cards in this deck, and now I'd have to start running some mediocre stuff. Actually, no, I haven't tried Memory Lapse yet. We'll definitely throw that in here. We'll throw in a Curate, a little mediocre draw spell. What do we have in terms of colorless cards? We could throw a Letter of Acceptance here, or we could just play 18 lands. Would I rather run this or run an 18th land, if that is the plan? I think I'd rather run this, because this can ramp us up from 3 to 5, which is kind of big. So it like speeds up our mana as well. It's not just like a land where we're playing just 1 per turn. Guess we are doing a lot on turn 3. We only have 9 creatures in this deck, so we'd prefer to have a deck with a lot of good removal. We don't have a ton of removal, which is kind of awkward, but we do have a Wrath effect for that kind of thing. Yeah, this is actually kind of awkward. The Enthusiastic Studies in a deck with only 9 creatures are definitely some of the most awkward things here, because even if you're not super aggressive, when you're running that card, you want to actually be able to cast it, so you want to have creatures on the board pretty consistently. Campus Guide does some mana fixing, but it doesn't throw the land in our hand, it just throws it on top, so it skips our next draw step to do that, basically. Ooh, our lands are pretty bad here. We didn't get any campuses, which is actually a big bummer. Campuses are always great, and I feel like they're exceptional in Sealed, because Sealed is a slow enough format. The campuses, if you don't know, are the common dual lands for each college, so a Prismari campus would come into play tapped, add blue or red, and it also has an ability, pay 4 mana, tap it to scry 1. I think all of those are pretty great in limited period, but really good in Sealed, because Sealed tends to be slower and you'll get into a lot more situations where you and your opponent are staring each other down and you're just in a war to see who draws the best card off of the top. Those campuses help you win those wars big time, and it does hurt a little bit not seeing any of them. Oh, wait, never mind. Never mind, they just sort them differently than I thought. I thought they were going to be in this land pile here. Here they are over here, but we did not get the most important campus for this deck. We didn't get the Prismari one. We could still play a Lorehold campus just for that ability to scry in the late game, just to run a tapped land in this deck. That might actually be worth it. I'm not certain. I mean, probably if we're a slower deck and we have a Wrath and not a lot of creatures, so I kind of think we are here. We're trying to hit these like big mana spells. Yeah, I think we're the kind of deck that would run just a red land that comes into play tapped and scries in the late game, so throw that in for now. The commons, we're only a 2-color deck, and none of our cards are very restrictive in their costs. We just need 2 red for Intervention, 2 red for Crackle with Power, 2 blue for Time Warp. That's it. Only 3 cards in the deck that require 2 mana of their respective colors. I don't think we need Archway commons that bad that we can run a land where, like, not only does this come into play tapped, it forces you to tap another land, so it's like it comes into play double tapped. So it's an exceptionally slow land. But if you're playing like a bunch of colors, it can be solid. Yeah. You know, I could see splashing a tiny bit of white just for the fact that I don't really want to play these Enthusiastic Studies. And I do want to play this Lorehold campus anyway. So I'd cut... I feel like my mana base gets a lot worse if I do that, but I could cut like 2 Enthusiastic Study and then I throw in Expel, Selfless Glyph Weaver. Shale's not great in this deck because off of the splash, as I said before, you prefer cards that are good even if you draw them in the late game, and we don't have a ton of creatures and we're not, you know, curving out with our creatures well just because there's a low count of them. And that's when Shale's at their best, when you are like really curving out. We could just like throw an Expel and triple Combat Professor, I guess. But we're just cutting 2 cards here, so we'd have to cut some other stuff if we wanted to do that. Can definitely see Expel for sure, cut 1 study. I guess the other thing to think of is we do have really powerful lessons. So far, lessons are just incredible. It could be worth throwing Enthusiastic Study in, even with the really low creature count. We have 2 Spirit Summoning in red, 1 Elemental Summoning in either of our colors, 2 Fractal Summoning in blue. Yeah, we have pretty great lessons, and with a Letter of Acceptance, we could even potentially splash in some random lesson if we have one that's just like monocolored in a different color. I don't think we do, though. I'm trying to see here. No, we don't. We just have the easy to cast hybrid lessons. Yeah, I feel like we have enough lessons, and they are all pretty good, that actually cool sticking to just Prismari here so that we could just keep the Enthusiastic Studies in. But that makes me want to go a little higher on creatures. See, now I have 10 creatures if I throw a Campus Guide in, so I cut something non-creature here. Could cut a counterspell. I guess Serpentine Curve is sort of a creature. Instants and sorceries in exile and in graveyard. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in this deck. Oh yeah, I think Serpentine Curve will be fine. We're just going to cut 1 instant or sorcery and still have 10 in here. And with Learn, that's incredible. With the Pop Quiz or Enthusiastic Study, we learn for a lesson, cast the lesson, and the lesson throws another instant or sorcery in grave. This counts the ones in exile as well, so it isn't even bad with Tome Shredder. Yeah, we can run Serpentine Curve, and then we basically have 11 creatures. Maybe Explosive Welcome is just a ton of mana. We don't have anything super ramping us up. We have 1 Letter of Acceptance and 1 Stormkiln Artist to ramp us up into our big spells. Wow, our win conditions are really just like Elemental Masterpiece, Crackle with Power kind of stuff. So yeah, we don't have a lot of like just winning the game power in this deck. Our creatures are fairly small. I wouldn't say our creatures are mediocre because they're good at their costs, most of them. Like Frost Tricksters and Tome Shedders are great, but they're small, that's for sure. So if we cut 1 more card here, maybe the Memory Lapse. I feel like it's one of the counter spells here, probably. Memory Lapse feels like a really solid tempo play, whereas Whirlwind Denial is like, it's the straight up counterspell. It's just gonna get that thing in the grave. But Memory Lapse could be a really big tempo hit on somebody, because you are basically countering their next draw as well. Trying to think. So this is all just theoretical because this is the kind of card I've literally never cast in my life, but I'm thinking this would probably be the most powerful in like a really aggressive deck, and you could just use this on any early spell from your opponent, and then you kind of just time walk them because, like, they just play a 4-mana 4/4 or something. You're like, yeah, put it back on top of your deck. You skip your next draw step and just spend your whole next turn casting the same thing, basically. Whereas, like, if we're trying to use this in the late game to stop something explosive, like a big bomb, it's going to be pretty bad because it stops it for 1 turn, but then they just cast it again, and it doesn't really hurt that they had to skip their next draw step because they were about to play something just really massive anyway. Yeah, I'm thinking, I don't know, like, we have potential hands where we could curve out super aggressively, but with just the low creature count in general, I don't think it happens super often. I think we're more preferring the Whirlwind Denial, just completely stop whatever they're doing, rather than do the big tempo hit to try to like keep swinging kind of thing. Maybe we're not even supposed to take a counterspell out here. Maybe we just take the Enthusiastic Study out, but I love our lessons here, and we only have 3 cards to learn. So I really don't like going down to less learned cards than that. Yeah, I'm going to keep the Whirlwind Denial in here. Still definitely going to play 17 lands plus the Letter, because all of our learn cards can hit like some really expensive stuff. We can hit the 5-drop Elemental Summoning, and we can hit the X mana Fractal Summonings. So not only do we have these expensive cards, we've got those that we're learning for as well. Could even see running 18 lands here, but here we have 17 lands plus a Letter of Acceptance plus a Campus Guide to throw a land on top. So I think 17's solid here. All right. I think that is going to end the deck building for me here. They did recently update Arena, so the actual Strixhaven sleeves are back, which is good. Very good to see. And we are going to make our deck look all fancy. Actually, make it look less fancy by getting that parallax style off. But we're going to make the deck box better and the sleeves. And I need to check on the mana real quick. Always important to do that. Sometimes the auto suggester for lands will be a little weird and a little wonky, so it is good to go in yourself and make sure it looks good to you. So here we have 13 red spells, 10 blue spells. 1 more red source than blue sources. Seems solid to me. Yeah, that seems about right. We have the Letter and the Campus Guide for fixing. Yeah, I will keep it like this. And let's see how our Prismari sealed deck runs. I will be interested to see how well Time Walk works in this deck. Because, or Time Warp. Time Walk's the 2-mana version. That would be phenomenal in any deck, but Time Warp is also the kind of card that is a lot better, like the better your board state is, because Time Walk, taking an extra turn, or Time Warp, getting them mixed up all over now, taking an extra turn, essentially, it gives you an extra untap. It's like untap all your permanents, get another combat step, draw another card. It's basically those 3 things. So you want to be getting as much value out of all of those effects as possible. So getting that extra value of having your additional combat step matter a lot can make a Time Warp like just phenomenal for you instead of just pretty good. All right. So we are going to take the 1 mulligan there to get both colors, and I'll keep this. I think I get rid of the Elemental Masterpiece, because it's like 7 mana, so we're very far away from that. We can just use Enthusiastic Study to get a mid-sized spell, like a decent late-game spell, like a 5 mana 4/4 Elemental Summoning. And then we have like the late-game kind of set up that way instead. Yeah, we're very far from Masterpiece, so I'm kind of cool with that, that mulligan there. Now we even have a turn 3 Frost Trickster, so we're kind of curving out here. Flame Scroll Celebrant turn 2 and Frost Trickster turn 3 if we want to cast that. As much as I like that Enter the Battlefield effect, a curve of a 2/1 with Fire Breathing on the ground into a 2/2 Flyer in the skies on turn 2 and 3 is good enough that even if they don't play a creature this turn, I'll probably dump out the Frost Trickster. And if they do dump a creature out, I'll definitely play the Frost Trickster, because then I get the value from its Enter the Battlefield effect as well. And I'm just super happy about that. So we are playing against Silver Quill and Lorehold, white, black, and red. They have a Lorehold Campus, Swamp, and Plains. So 3 colors of mana up now. Stonerise Spirit in the late game can exile cards from grave to give other creatures flying till end of turn. So it can make cards like their Tome Shredder jump into the sky. I do kind of like just the attack in here. We can Enthusiastic Study, but it won't save Flame Scroll Celebrant, so I guess it's not awesome. So if we attack in here, we probably just let Flame Scroll Celebrant trade into Tome Shredder. It's not a terrible trade for us, because Tome Shredder could get bigger in the late game. I don't think Celebrant's doing much on blocks, because it's only 1 toughness anyway. Yeah, this is pretty likely to die at almost any time. Although I guess with Tome Shredder and Stonerise Spirit out, they have 2 creatures with decent activated abilities out, so we could kind of bank on its effect putting in some work and try to keep it out. But I guess the thing is, if they just attack me with Tome Shredder on the ground, am I going to block it? 100%. I'm just going to block and trade there anyway. So, yeah, we'll send in the all attack here and offer the trade. And we'll probably just cast a Pop Quiz during their turn. We'll have our 4th mana out this turn, so we could Pop Quiz and grab our 5 mana 4/4, our Elemental Summoning. Do need to draw another land to be able to cast that, so that would be a little bit of a bold play, but I'm not sure what other lessons we would even have here. Yep, Enthusiastic Study +3/+1, so still only 2 toughness, so we allow this. And pass the turn. Now we can even Whirlwind Denial if they play something very scary. Combat Professor is pretty scary. Yeah, I think it's scary enough to just pop that. That is a very good card. The 3/3 Flying Vigilance by itself. And even better with other cards. We did hit the 5th land for the Elemental Summoning, so we are likely just going to Pop Quiz in their end step here. Ooh, is that a Hall of Oracles? Yeah, this card is great. This can start putting +1/+1 counters on your creatures any turn that you cast an instant or sorcery. Really, really good land for when you have the additional mana to like cast an instant or sorcery and hold the mana up. Ooh, Igneous Inspiration, another phenomenal card here. 3 damage to a target and learn. If I Pop Quiz, I won't draw on anything that'll save the Trickster in this deck. It would need to be a 2 mana or less instant that does something crazy. We don't have anything like that. There's no reason to Pop Quiz in response. So yeah, Igneous Inspiration, really, really good card because it is a nice cheap removal spell that also learns. And as we've been over, learn is just a very powerful mechanic. They learn for an Inkling Summoning. 2/1 flyer for 3 mana. Pretty solid. Oh yeah, and that does activate the Hall of Oracles as well, throwing the +1/+1 counter on the Stonerise Spirit. Hitting us for 2 in the sky instead of just 1. Let's go ahead and pop our quiz. Draw a mountain. So would I rather grab a Fractal Summoning? That means I have 6 lands. If I cast a Fractal Summoning, it's just going to be a 4/4 anyway, so I may as well. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm just tapping all out next turn. Save the Fractal Summonings for later, when we have more mana. Yeah, let's just grab the 4/4. And dump it out here. We do have 7 mana available now, so our 7 mana Instants and sorceries are now looking really sweet if we draw into those. Elemental Masterpiece and Explosive Welcome. Oh, Explosive Welcome is actually 8 mana. Interesting. Okay, I guess we're 1 mana away from the Explosive Welcome, but the Elemental Masterpiece is 7. And that would be pretty great. Our opponent has 6 mana up now. They could cast an Inkling Summoning. If they cast that, they get a 2/1 flyer out, and they get to put a +1/+1 counter on one of their creatures from Hall of Oracle's ability. Turn their Stonerise Spirit into a 3/4 flyer, or the Inkling into a 3/2 flyer. Mage Hunter's Onslaught to destroy our 4/4. Oh, the auto tapper may have messed them up there. Oh no, they had to use the Hall. They had to add an extra black mana there because Mage Hunter's Onslaught costs double black. Alright, that makes sense. Ooh, Tome Shredder's pretty solid here. We have 3 cards that can eat already in our grave. So we know this is going to be 3/3 at the very least. Do I want to just slam in here? This is like some Quandrix level math with like the exclamation marks and stuff for what is more damage over time. If I hit them 7 turns with this, it'll kill them. However, if on the first 2 turns I make it bigger, then it'll be a 4/4 by the 3rd turn. So on the 3rd turn I start hitting for 4. So 4, then 6, then 2, then 0. So that would take 6 turns total to kill them if I just put counters on it the first 2 turns. If I put counters on it the first 3 turns, it'll be a 5/5, which kills them in 3 swings. So I spend 3 turns making it bigger, and then 3 turns hitting them, and that's lethal. So that's 6 turns total instead of 7. 7 for 2 a turn. See, I don't... when it gets all like this kind of stuff, I am not in Quandrix, so... It's almost definitely better to get the counter on, because it also makes it easier for it to chip through later in the game. We can actually get through their blockers like Stonerise Spirit, so they can't just like leave that back to block the Tome Shredder and stuff like that. Sedgemoor Witch. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, create a 1/1. Ooh. Magecraft to get pest tokens, and it's a 3/2 menace, and I have to pay 3 life to target it. It's a pretty solid rare there, the Sedgemoor Witch. Might be my first time seeing that, or just the first time it's mattered. And the Inkling Summoning to follow it up, giving them the pest token to start chump blocking the Tome Shredder. See, now is where if we had just attacked there, that would have actually gotten some damage in at the very least, where now... now we don't even know if and when Tome Shredder will be able to poke in. If I attack in here, I can Enthusiastic Study to make it 4 toughness, but they've got 1,000,000 power out. Probably better as a blocker here. I could Enthusiastic Study right now and grab a 5 mana or less lesson. I wish I would sort the lessons out. Because, like, I know I have lessons in here, but I gotta go find, like, multicolored. It's not even sorted by color. That's, like, actually kind of ridiculous. There's 1 lesson. Start from scratch. That's not good here. 2 fractal summonings, and we have a spirit summoning as well, right? We do. We have 2 spirit summonings, 2 fractal summonings. So I could Enthusiastic Study just to get a 3/2 spirit blocker here. Or grab a fractal summoning. I think if I want to grab a fractal summoning, I'll do it in their end step so I can dump all my mana into it next turn. But I am pretty sure we need to hit our kind of wrath effect here if we want to get out of this game, just because we don't have anything to stop these flyers. And we can't really chip into the board if they're going to have a pest token. We can trample over 1 time, but that's not going to do 14 damage. Unless we get a really big fractal, and in order to get our fractal summoning, we have to spend our our trample spell here. So I think we're trying to draw our Wrath effect that deals damage to each creature equal to the mana cost of the spell that we exile, and then we're going to exile Elemental Summoning if we do draw into that. In which case it might actually be best to have held onto a land and then used Learn to discard a card to draw a card. If that's our only out... Oh no. I think we're dead right now to a Lore Hold command. This is one of the best commands for sure. Create a 3/2, sacrifice a permanent, draw 2 cards. Oh, interesting. I thought for sure they were going to be using the effect to give their whole field like +1/+0. I want to see the printed card, but it won't show it to me right now. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that can give like the whole field a buff. That might have lethaled us. Maybe not quite, and that's why they didn't do it. Yeah, creatures you control get +1/+0, indestructible, and haste. That would have been massive. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, that would have been very lethal. 12, 13, 14. Because they do 3 damage to Tome Shredder, so I have to tap it to save it, and then... It would be dead on board, but we have Enthusiastic Study where we would have survived. I guess they are playing against a blue deck with all this open mana, so maybe they didn't want to put any risk on their cards there. And again, yeah, the risk-free attack here where I can't block anything because Menace and Flying. Alright, they're just playing it very safe because they are in a pretty firm lead here. So fair enough. I can grab a Fractal Summoning right now, but it doesn't do anything for me. I need to draw my Wrath effect, so I'd rather hold on to Enthusiastic Study. That way if I don't draw the Wrath effect, I can discard whatever I draw for one last chance. Alright, we're going to discard this. And I don't want this to get countered. They only have 1 white mana up, so I guess the only thing they could have would be like a Mana Tithe. So it's safe to throw it on Tome Shredder. If they had like a bunch of mana up, then I would rather target like their best creature. That way if they had an instant speed removal spell, they couldn't just counter this to stop me from getting the Learn. Like if they kill our creature in response to this, then the whole spell just goes to the grave. And we don't get to Learn. Unfortunately, we just get a Campus Guide here, so that is not going to do it. Alright, round here. The brain is mush as always. Round 2 here. We're going to start with this Lorehold Campus tapped. We got the Frost Trickster turn 3, Pop Quiz and Study to start learning. Grab our 4/4s and Fractals. Seems good to me. A little slow, but should be quick enough for sealed. Soothsayer Adept on turn 2 now. Pretty great draw. Now we get to curve out a little better. Opponent is starting off with a Scourge Colony, a 2/2 reach. It's going to be a 4/4 reach once they have 8 or more lands. So eventually that'll be a big threat. For now, our 1/3 can block it all day long. And our opponent is on Quandrix here. We see a Quandrix Campus and 3 forests out thanks to Field Trip. I think I'll hold the Soothsayer Adept back to block the 2 damage there and just send in with Frost Trickster this turn. They grab an Elemental Summoning off of their Field Trip. I think I'd rather Pop Quiz than play a 2/1 here, because we know they can get a 4/4 next turn if they have 1 more blue source coming up. And a 2/1's not going to attack well into a 4/4 anyway. Yep. I like attacking with Frost Trickster here. Now we get to hold up Whirlwind Denial or Pop Quiz. Don't know if Whirlwind Denial is worth using on a 4/4. I guess with our current board it is, because we can't... We can keep attacking with like Frost Trickster in the sky, but I don't think we'll really outrace it, and we don't have anything to block it, so we don't really have another way to deal with it right now. Yeah, I'll just counter the 4/4. Now we get to attack in with Frost Trickster, and they may block with the Scourge Colony, where we can Enthusiastic Study for the Learn. May as well send both, and I feel like they're almost definitely blocking Frost Trickster here. Although I guess this does look really suspicious. If they don't make any blocks, we can cast our Letter and then a Campus Guide and still have a 2/1 to block and trade with the Colony. That's definitely a trade up, our 2/1 into their 2/2 with Reach that can get bigger later. Alright, well, we can kill it off either blocks. This works too. And now we have 4 mana. Not enough to start getting big fractals, so I kind of like Elemental Summoning. We also do have Expanded Anatomy, actually, which is interesting here. Make a 4/4 flyer. If we feel like they don't have a lot of removal, that could be good. And they are in green-blue, so they aren't likely to have a ton. Yeah, that actually does seem potentially pretty good next turn. Might be a bit of a bold choice there. Leyline Invocation is the play. Now they have a 6/6 out. We have 2 mana up after this. Would I rather play a Campus Guide as a 2/1 or play a Letter of Acceptance and Expanded Anatomy? I think I would rather play a Letter of Acceptance and Expanded Anatomy to have more mana available later. We can take 1 hit for 6 here. Yeah, we're out racing a single 6/6 right now. We hit for 4 3 more times and they die. They have to hit us 3 more times, but we're hitting before they hit us. Pop Quiz, I leave 4 mana up after casting Pop Quiz. That's not quite enough to drop out an Elemental Summoning if that's what I want to do. I like having Pop Quiz and Soothsayer Adept's ability up here. But Campus Guide just for 1 chump block, just Campus Guide to gain 6 life basically is also just not bad. 5, 6, 7. We can only cast... I guess we could do all of the things. 2 mana here, 3 mana here, 2 mana here. Yeah, we could do all 3 things. Go ahead and hit for 4 first, I think. See if this pans out. We put them down to 5. Awesome. They are dead in 2 more swings then. Get the Campus Guide out. I will not put a land on top of my deck right now. I don't think it's worth the chump block to gain the 6 life immediately because we are pressuring them pretty hard. Oh dear. Tanazir Quandrix. Well, that doubles the number of counters on one of their creatures. Do I have any... I don't have any 2 mana counters because we didn't put Memory Lapse in here. I'm actually finding a lot of situations where Memory Lapse would... Oops. What am I doing here? I'm trying to look through my deck. Yeah, there's nothing I could draw for 2 mana right now that would be any good. So we just have to allow it. But yeah, these games have already ended with a lot of positions where Memory Lapse would be sweet. I guess the first game, not really, but this one. Yeah, now we're stopping 12 damage, so, I mean, goodbye, Campus Guide. Gotta find a way to break through that Tanazir. So Pop Quiz, draw a card, and learn. Could discard this land just to draw another card here. None of this is gonna win. Yeah, that's just 4 4s and 3 2s on the ground. It's just going to postpone things for another turn, so it's probably better to just discard this land we just drew. Ardent Dust Speaker, a 3/4 on the ground. That's not going to help us either. Because it's just going to chump block a 12/12. Draw a card and then discard that. Curate. What are I think I'd rather discard the Dust Speaker. Curate digs us 2 cards deep for something better. What do we hit off of the Curate now? Probably should have done 1 of each mana so that I could cast like a Time Warp without using my letter. Prismari Command. 2 damage to any target. Draw 2, discard 2. 2 to any target doesn't actually help that much here. Yeah, because the problem is that our flyers are equally sized. They're 4/4s. I can't just like shoot theirs for 2 and then have ours win. But we could like draw 2, discard 2 off of that. Do 2 damage to their face, I guess. Put them to 3. And then we just chump block next turn. This is just like a draw 2, discard 2. Get us closer to something? Yeah. We can do it instant speed as well. So like if it does end up mattering, what does this do when it attacks? Have the base power and toughness of other creatures you control become equal to it, so all of their base power toughness is 4/4s? Oh dear. Yeah, this is not great. Whatever we draw off of Prismari Command, we're not going to have the mana to cast immediately anyway, because we'll only have 2 mana up. I think we have to pass here. I mean, our only hope would be that like they block here, and then... Or they don't block here, and then we shoot them for 2. What happens if they don't block? Well, if they don't block, they die. If they do block, we get rid of Tanazir to stop some damage, potentially, because then their other thing isn't a 4/4 at least, so we just chump block there and take 1 instead of take 4. Yeah, better to attack than to block. Give them the chance to let us kill them. If they have a trick here, it's very, very bad for us. I guess if we didn't attack in, though, we wouldn't have to block with our flyer. We could block there and take 8 and go to like 6 life, and then hope to find a way to deal with the flying blocker. Actually, oh my god, no. If they overcommitted there, we could block there and then send in the 4/4 flyer and shoot for 2. Like if they overcommitted and didn't find another blocker for the Frost Trickster, that might have been a way to find an out. That probably would have been better. All of our lines just require our opponent taking a specific line to be an out for us. So it really depends on like how risky our opponent got that next turn. If our opponent was willing to just slam the all attack, then holding on to that Frost Trickster would have been better, because Frost Trickster plus Prismari Command could have maybe gotten them at the end here. Okay, that's really bad. So we go to 1 life because we have to put our creature back into our hand. Yeah, let's draw 1, discard 1 then. So they get a 4/4 scry 1, draw a card, and put one of our cards back in hand, one of our creatures specifically. So if this was their play this turn, then if we took the other line to try to save our 4/4 to be able to kill them plus a Prismari Command, we would have to block this turn, because now they have the multiple choice that would make us bounce the Soothsayer, so our only blocker would be our 4/4. And then we'd even have to chump block the Fractal. So the line we took worked out better because they had multiple choice, but because we didn't have that information, I think I still made the wrong play, probably. It ended up being the right play in hindsight, but without the knowledge that they have the multiple choice. Oh, that's Exactsies. Well, draw 2, discard 2. Oh, that's actually overkill. That's That's 4 more damage. Oh, Frost Trickster actually would have been a really good draw to freeze down a Fractal there. Not enough to push to lethal, though. Don't think we had much of a chance there. Quandrix just got the big spells coming out there, and that leads us into 0-2 to start off this sealed. I'm not really feeling it here, to be honest. I feel like this deck's pretty good. We can take another look at it here. I think we are playing against some very, very solid, well-built decks, though. Let's see what we got again. I could see maybe cutting the campus guide, throwing the memory leak kind of thing back in. Memory lapse. I want to try out the memory lapse, so I'm just going to do that. Just be very low creatures. So we are heading into what may be the final round. Could be a 0-3 sealed here. Would be unfortunate. But at the very least, we opened some cool stuff. We got a Time Warp, Prismari Command, Crackle with Power, a bunch of very fun cards. Alright, we are back in round 3. We have Blood Age General turn 2 here. We have Crackle with Power when we hit 5 mana. Do want to draw a blue source, but if we make it to 5 mana, we can start scrying for it. Yeah. We only have one spell that we can cast for sure. If we draw poorly. Does seem pretty risky. It's not even that great if it pays off because it's pretty slow. We're just playing a 2-2 and then sitting there till turn 5 basically. But we have that memory lapse to try to slow our opponent down if we draw the blue source quickly. I think this is going to be a mulligan for me. We do have both colors now. We got memory lapse, Blood Age General. We have Draconic Intervention to try to do a one-sided Wrath at some point. I mean, this is not a one-sided Wrath, but if you have it in your opening hand, then you can just start sandbagging all of your creatures so that you don't just Wrath a massive amount of your own stuff. You can kind of turn it into a one-sided Wrath by playing around it well. That being said, I think I still want to drop Blood Age General turn 2. I guess not. We've got Curate here at instant speed. Maybe we can pretend our deck is nothing but instants and sorceries. Could be fun. There's a Tome Shredder. Do I want to slow them down? No, because I want to get... Like, I want them to be able to play as many creatures as quickly as possible so they can just blow the Draconic Intervention quickly here. Let's Curate. Island and a Spirit Warrior. We actually do need to hit another red for Draconic Intervention, so that is a problem. But we don't need another island for anything. I will... Yeah, I'll put both in the grave here. Draw a card drawn to Tome Shredder. Ooh, and we have Time Warp coming up. Time Warp being in our grave will make Draconic Intervention hit everything for 5. We did draw into a Tome Shredder. We can immediately make a 3-3 here. Yeah, I'm going to dump out the Tome Shredder. I like the idea of... trying to make this Tome Shredder the biggest creature on board, make it big enough to survive a Draconic Intervention. Because now we know Tome Shredder is going to be a 3-3, because we can get rid of the Curate. We can make it a 4-4, getting rid of our Memory Lapse, and then make it a 5-5, getting rid of like our Time Warp. I guess, no, we need to save the Time Warp to be able to use on Draconic Intervention. Yeah, we'll see how things pan out, but it's possible that we can make Tome Shredder bigger than our Wrath. We could also see if they just want to blow a removal spell on Tome Shredder. Next turn, if they play like no creatures, I guess I could play Blood Age General and just not be on the Wrath line. Just play Blood Age General, hold up Memory Lapse. Let's see how things progress here to see what we want to do. Dueling Coach puts a +1/+1 counter or something on something, and for 5 mana they can put another counter on everything that has a counter. Yeah, that's pretty solid. Well, they can't attack in this turn because our Tome Shredder is a 3/3. We need to be able to do at least 3 damage to Wrath everything, but we do have the next red mana. I am pretty much planning on Draconic Interventioning here, so I don't want to dump any more creatures onto the field. I'll just hold on to our Memory Lapse if we want to do that. If we don't, we get to Time Warp next turn, Time Warp into Draconic Intervention for 5 damage to all creatures. Could be our play next turn if we have to. Yeah, I will resolve that. The Draconic Intervention does exile everything that it kills, so they don't even get to do the special ability there. They still have 4 cards in hand here. I'm not getting like a boatload of value off of Time Warp, I'm just untapping and drawing a card here. Yeah, it is early enough, I don't have to pop the intervention. Just play a Letter of Acceptance and pass, holding Memory Lapse if something goes heinously bad, and if they just play another creature that's good for me in the grand scheme of things, even if we will be taking a bit of damage potentially. Still at 18, so we definitely have breathing room to take a hit. We have 4 cards in hand. This is the main reason I don't love just popping the Wrath last turn, because they just have still so much stuff they could keep on doing. We don't know what those cards are, and there are a lot of them. And we know what our hand is. The only thing we're putting on our board after Wrath is just a single little 2/2 here. Our deck is pretty low in creature count. Stonebound Mentor. I like that. Definitely not going to Memory Lapse that. Just a 3/3, it gives me something else to Wrath. They don't attack in either, which might help give me the time to just keep chillin' on my intervention. I guess I could sacrifice this letter to draw another card. We have 5 mana already, we're gonna Time Warp. That'll draw us another card. Yeah, I'm pretty likely, or I'm not super likely to need this mana soon. We have like 1 7 mana card, 1 8 mana card. Yeah, and we just hit a land here. Yeah, now we have 7 mana, so we just play a land, pass. Again, because I have Memory Lapse, I feel pretty safe. Like, we know they're not going to play some kind of spell that gives their whole field +2/+2 or something. So we can just, like, block one thing and take, like, 7. Go to 9 in order to Wrath more things, potentially. We can win at combat here if they don't have a trick. Take 8, go to 10. Yeah, let's see what they have here. A +2/+2 trick. Would rather put that on top of their deck or let it go off. Tome Shredder's gonna die anyway, so I think I let it go off, but I kind of like them drawing that after I Wrath their board. They only have 2 cards left in hand. But I'm going to have enough mana to Wrath and hold up a Memory Lapse, which is probably better. So we're going 10. Alright. Got a little greedy on the Wrath there. Did not have to hold on that long for sure, but we'll Time Warp now. They did not play an extra creature that turn, so Wrath would have just been better earlier. And now we go for it. They have 2 cards in hand. If they try to save things, we can Memory Lapse right now. If they don't have anything to save anything, then we could just Memory Lapse their first play post-Wrath. And now we have 3 creatures to follow up with, one of which is a Serpentine Curve, which should be pretty big. Especially if we get to Memory Lapse before we cast the Curve. This will be a 4/4 right now, I think. Or I guess a 3/3. I don't know if it counts itself. Probably not. So probably a 3/3 right now. Okay, that resolves. Okay, so it doesn't count whatever's on the stack, because that Draconic Intervention was on the stack. So it'll be a 4/4. It'll be just what number it says. I don't have to do any stupid little Quandrix math. I think I'd rather just be super safe here, because I am down to 10 and hold on to the Memory Lapse, than dump out a 2/1. Yeah, you can put that back on top. I don't have anything to deal with a flyer right now. That sounds like a bad time, and now I do. That was a really good draw, and I even have the mana to drop my 5/5 and then do that. Although I can also drop these 2, and then the Curve will be even bigger because Whirlwind Denial will be in the grave as well. And I can Fire Breathe with this to hit for just as much damage as the Serpentine Curve would have hit for. Oh yeah, this is some solid draws. It's kind of just like the dream plays to follow up the Wrath. That panned out very well. Ooh, Pigment Storm puts me to 6. That is painful and does have me pretty scared here. Gonna play out all these creatures because I'm more scared of dying to like a burn spell than a reverse Wrath effect. Although they could get me with the reverse Wrath. I just really want to make sure, no matter how much like individual removal spells they have, we can lethal them as quickly as possible. So they can't just like triple Pigment Storm me or anything. So that does give us 1 win. It is not the 0-2 drop. We're 1-2 now. That's a start for sure. See if we can't turn that momentum into an avalanche of victories. Alright. Queue times do get a little long sometimes, unfortunately. As always, there are timestamps in the description below to each round. They are in the description rather than the time bar, so there are no spoilers as to how many rounds there are. Alright. Well, this is a definite mulligan. It's all red mana and triple blue spells. Yeah, not much to say on that one. This one's a keep. I think between Stormkiln Artist and Serpentine Curve, I'd rather get rid of the Stormkiln Artist. I I want to get rid of my cheaper spells. I want to get rid of one of the 4-mana cards. Yeah, we're unlikely to have like extra spells to be mage crafting off of once we've played our 4-mana card, because we'll probably have already dumped all this out. It's like Serpentine Curve because it'll be just as big as the dwarf, as like a minimum. And if we draw any more cheap spells to cast in the meantime, it'll be even better. I cast the Flame Scroll Celebrant first, so I might be able to get in for some big fire-breathing damage. Whereas the 2/2 is just a 2/2 at all times. We're not a lore hold deck that can make good use of its buff trigger. Oh wow, Plarg, the Dean of Chaos. So they can rummage, they can discard cards to draw cards, and for 5 mana they get to grab a random non-legendary non-land card with mana value 3 or less, cast it for free. That is insane. That is really, really good. Because then if they run out of plays, they can just start spending 5 every turn and still casting a card every single turn until they run out of mana value 3 or less cards in decks. So that is a terrifying card, and we are absolutely just going to slam into that. We'll take any trade we can get, because that is a lot of value in the late game. I'm already scared enough of what they have on board that I don't feel like holding the Whirlwind Denial here, because I'm just trying to push through before they can start spinning the wheel on that. And yeah, I wouldn't be super happy just countering a 3/3 there. Although now we can't attack in as well. My Flame Scroll Celebrant can trade up into that, which is fine, but not great. Gets it out of the way so I can attack in with everybody else. It does cost my mana, though. I'm not casting anything this turn if I end up buffing it to trade up into that. The only thing I really want to cast here, because they have a 3/3 to block like Tome Shredder, would be Whirlwind Denial. Yeah, I'm going to send this attack in. Just put the pressure on. Luckily, no blocks. I'm not going to Serpentine Curve for a 1/1. I will take that 3 damage. Pillar Drop Warden. It's a 1/5 reach, and I'm trying to out-aggro them and get through this Plarg, so I think it's worth the counter here. Alright, now I can even slam down the Tome Shredder attack all. Again, Plarg has a powerful enough ability, I'm even willing to trade a Tome Shredder into it. Okay, no blocks, so we'll do the pump. Puts him down to 8. 17 life to 8 life, so in terms of life total, we're doing well here. But Lightning Helix can turn that right around, kill our best creature, and gain 3 life. Very solid card from the Mystical Archive. So now we can't attack in well against the Stonebound Mentor until Tome Shredder gets a little bigger. Still don't really like Serpentine Curve, although the 2/2 Dwarf wouldn't be any better. So I don't feel super bad about that mulligan, but it is starting to feel like the Dwarf might have been better to keep, because of the fact that this is only a 2/2, it makes me want to wait until I cast more stuff, whereas the Dwarf, I can cast the Dwarf, and sure, it's just a 2/2, but then if I draw more stuff after I play it, it's fine, whereas this, I have to draw that stuff before I play it. So that might have been a bit of a punt there. I think that we're just going to scry off our campus and make our Tome Shredder a 3/3 so that it can actually attack into the Stonebound Mentor. Unfortunately, somehow this is not a Spirit Wolf. It really looks like a Spirit Wolf, which would be really good with the Blood Age General, but it's not. It's just a wolf. Just a dog eating your homework. Okay. Tome Shredder's a 3/3, and we'll scry. Explosive Welcome. We're 2 mana away from doing that, but that's pretty big. They're at 11. We could do 5 to their face and kill one of their creatures, or we could kill 2 creatures. It's big enough to keep it, I think, but we're a little ways off here. They only have 2 mana up, so Tome Shredder's probably an okay attacker. I think now I do want to play the Serpentine Curve, because scrying isn't incredible now because lands are still okay for me because I can hit Explosive Welcome and any non-land is also fine, so we get more power on the board. So if I play a Serpentine Curve, then I know we can make Tome Shredder a 4/4. And then a 4/4 can attack in, and the only way they can kill it is if they double block, and if they double block we can kill Plarg, as well as get these in. Pillar Drop Rescuer brings back a Pilgrim of the Ages, so just a 2/1. That's fine. And it's a 2/2 flyer, so it's not that big. That trades with our 2/2s. They do get to scry one with Stonebound Mentor's ability. Pretty nice combo there. Make our Tome Shredder a 4/4 now. I guess, yeah, with another 2/2, now they can double block our Tome Shredder with the 3/3 and 2/2, and Plarg doesn't have to get dirty. Get his hands dirty, so to say. 1 mana away from the Explosive Welcome now. Now, do we just hold for a good attack after an Explosive Welcome? Yeah, like, what are the worst blocks for us if we attack all here? We attack all here, they double block there, take 4, go to 7. They could also like double block these 2 onto Tome Shredder and this onto one of the 2/2s, then their board is a 3/3 and our board is a 2/2. That's actually really bad, because they have 4 cards in hand, we go to just a 2/2 on board, and they have a 3/3 on board. They have 4 cards to our 1 card, and a 3/3 to our 2/2. And they would also not take any damage by doing that. Sure, they lose Plarg, but I think that... No, that would be brutal. I don't think we can attack in here. Just go for the scry. And there's the Pilgrim. Send in for 2, alright. Down to 15, we'll take our scry. Curate? And we're just trying to hit the land, so let's just draw the land rather than the card that draws into it, I think. Oh my god, okay. 7 mana? Oh, we're 1 mana away from really going off with that also. I could Crackle with Power and hit their face for 5 to put them to 6 life, and then if I hit the land, I put them to 1. Oh, it's probably just not a thing. I think we have to hold for both of these. Just need that 1 land. We just use the campus again and just grind to that basic. Let's go. Because let's see, 8 mana total for that. 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we hit 8 mana for that. We do 10 damage to 2 targets. Oh. Fingers crossed. The gods of RNG, let's go. We've got that scry to try to make it there. Our opponent is establishing a good defensive board state now, but they are only chipping away at us for a couple damage a turn. So we have the time to attempt to draw that 8th land. We also have the scry. This is feeling like we've got a chance here. Enthusiastic Study does learn, and the trample's big. Discard draw. No, throw it on bottom. It's not a land. It's not a land. Give me the land. That's a land. It's a slow one, but it's a land. We can play this. That even gives us enough mana to scry one more time, and then we can start casting the big spells. Explosive Welcome's an instant, so I think I would want to do that one first. They grab a Hunt for Specimens. What are they learning for here? Could gain a life from that, but we can still do 5 plus 10. We can do 15 to them, so unless they can gain a ton of life, we'll be fine. Exile a non-land permanent. Its controller creates a 3/2. So they get to exile our Tome Shredder, turn our 4/4 into a 3/2 here. That is pretty bad for us. That makes it so they have actual attacks on the ground pretty soon. Maybe even right now if they want to push in, but as soon as we cast an Explosive Welcome, they'll really want to push in. Yeah, that's why I like doing Explosive Welcome more than Crackle with Power. If we Crackle with Power, just like put them to 1 and shoot their flyer, they're just going to start like slamming off the big scary attacks at us. Explosive Welcome, they might not see it coming to where we can do this in the end step, then Crackle in our next turn, and the 1/2 punch out of nowhere for lethal. Get another scry. Draconic Intervention for 3? That's funny, but we don't need it. We can do it for 8 though. Yeah. Whatever, we got 8 mana. There's a backup plan right there. If things go very awry, we can now deal 8 to each creature. And we're going to cast this Welcome in the end step, so we just pass through. I guess we can do it during combat to stop 2 more damage. Creature tokens you control get +1/+1 whenever 1 or more non-token creatures you control die. Create a 2/1 with flying. Triggers only once each turn. I think we do this right now then, so they don't get a flyer out of it. Although the only reason it would matter is if they're gonna get another attack, and they're not gonna get another attack if they don't gain life. Yeah, I guess it resolves. Okay, cool. Now they're tapped out, so we know that we've got in the bag Welcome into power. Sending a Stonebound. Oh god, they are sending that big ground attack in here. I guess now because all of the trades are good for them. As long as I don't take lethal. They don't gain any life. Yeah, they don't gain life from these things coming out. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just be safe about it. Just like, sure, block everything that doesn't gain them life. Shoot them for 10. We're gonna deal 5 times 2 to them. Yeah, 5 times 2 to 2 targets. Alright. Oh my god. That was very dumb. Very, very dumb. Our opponent had a really sweet deck there. The Plarg for sure, and the Dramatic Finale. But we had the full reversal on the Dramatic Finale. Really cool, flavorful name on that card for sure. But that does put us to 2-2. We've made it out of the muck. We are getting wins here. Definitely not going to be, and I would say undefeated, but it's definitely not going to be undefeated. It's also not going to be what is the opposite of undefeated? Completely defeated? It's not going to be a completely defeated deck. At least 2-3 now. Perhaps even better. See how things do in round 5. I have ran out of water. I drank all my water too quickly today. I found a little bit. Okay. Round 5, let's go. Mono red hand, but we have Blood Age General into Draconic Intervention. We need another instant or sorcery for Draconic Intervention to do anything. Yeah, it does seem pretty risky here. If we hit double island, it's great. If we hit one island, it's probably okay enough to survive for a while, potentially hit that second island that we need. Because Blood Age into Frost Trickster can slow them down. We can make some trades, slow down their creature. Yeah, Time Warp Draconic Intervention is a big deal if you can resolve those both, but it's a coin flip of a keep if we keep it. Are we gambling today? Yeah, opponent's on the play. I'm just going to go for it here. Our opponent's on the play, so we get an extra draw step out of this hand. A little bit more time to hit the blue mana. Frost Trickster, another one of those cards that gives us like more time to slow our opponents down. Opponent is on Lorehold and Silver Quill here, red, white, and black, with a Silver Quill Campus out. And there's the white source. And there's our blue source. So we are all set up. Not entirely. We do need another blue to get a instant or sorcery in our grave for our Draconic Intervention. Opponent starts with an Expel. Would I rather just play the Soothsayer Adept so I can start drawing and discarding, potentially getting into the second blue, or the Frost Trickster just to start beating them for 2? This hand looks really slow in general, so I don't think beating them with a 2-2 is something we're going to want to be doing when we can get a really good Draconic Intervention going. We can play the Soothsayer Adept, and then we start using the Soothsayer Adept to draw and discard, try and get towards the second blue for the Time Warp. And even if we don't hit the Time Warp, we can discard Explosive Welcome, so that Draconic Intervention does 8 damage to everything, which seems solid. And we did just hit the second blue anyway, so we no longer need to be using the Soothsayer Adept, but I'll still use it to draw and discard, maybe help build our hand a little better here. Definitely not going to run out of Frost Trickster. We are certainly on the Draconic Intervention plan this game. And with Death Touch, we're not going to be blocking that Spiteful Squad anytime soon, but it only does 2 a turn, so we have the time to just loot with our Soothsayer Adept for a little bit. We can bleed a little bit, just take 2 a turn for a few turns here. As we just set up future plays. Explosive Welcome is 8 mana. It's by far the farthest away, so I'm going to keep Elemental Masterpiece for now. We'll go to our turn. Serpentine Curve is not bad. I could Time Warp right now, but what does Time Warping right now really accomplish? Not a ton. We already have an 8 mana card engraved for Intervention, so we have a big card for that. I think I would rather just draw discard off Soothsayer Adept. Like, casting Time Warp right now is straight up just drawing 1 card. That's all we're getting out of it. They also don't have anything that scary out right now, so I could be just playing this Frost Trickster to slow down the Spiteful Squad and just start slapping them for 1 and 2 in the sky. But, like, I feel like we have really big plays for a post-Wrath board. If we can just get them to dump more creatures out, but their hand might just be all removal, in which case our board wipes are not super great here. Either way, 2 damage a turn is a slow enough clock. We can just set up our draws here. for whatever they're playing. Blot out the sky, create X 2/1s. Okay. With flying. Well, now I want a Draconic Intervention for sure. Let's draw a discard here. Island. I do want that for my 7 mana spells. Do I just discard Frost Trickster actually? I think I do. Because now I'm going to Time Warp, then I'm going to Intervention. And then I'm going to Elemental Masterpiece, Serpentine Curve kind of stuff. Maybe I do just still discard the land. Yeah, we have time to make it to 7 mana, because we literally have time. We have Time Warp. So we Time Warp, Draconic Intervention. And then after we do that, we just play like Frost Trickster and Serpentine Curve instead. Yeah. Oh, another Frost Trickster. I don't actually have the Time Warp right now. But it does draw me another card. I could let it do another damage too. Get an extra point in with Soothsayer Adept. Yeah, I'm just gonna go for it. Why not? Get that extra draw step. Because we do want to get to the 7 lands here. That's pretty big. And it puts another instant or sorcery in grave for Serpentine Curve, which is important. I only need to do 2 damage to everything, which is hilarious. Let's just make it as funny as possible. We'll do 8. May as well. Now we can just start Frost Trickstering whatever creatures they play here. If they don't play any creatures, it's probably just all removal, so we can maybe get them to use removal on our Frost Tricksters. And that makes it so our 4/4s and I guess Serpentine Curve is also a 4/4. It makes it so our 4/4s don't get shot down. Yeah, I like dumping both of these out. It is a bit of a bummer not getting the value from their ETB effect, but we get to put that pressure on post-Wrath here and have an actual board. Very much, like, extremely highly just expecting 2 removal spells here. But we'll see. I don't know what that was there. They said oops, so I'm guessing, I don't know, maybe they thought it was a different spell. That was kind of strange. Igneous Inspiration coming out here. 3 damage, and they get to learn. So they have learned their Introduction to Prophecy to scry 2 and draw a card, but they're down to 2 cards in hand. We do have 1 threat here. If we hit 1 more land, we get a big old Elemental Masterpiece going down. If we don't, we can also just Serpentine Curve here, which seems fine to me. Yeah, just cast our Curve. We've got more great spells coming up. Now we have Prismari Command, even if we don't hit more mana. Enthusiastic Study should be great. Give something trample and drawn to an elemental or fractal summoning. We've got a nice little 2/1 chump blocker here. It chump blocks once and then exiles to chump block again as a 3/2. Well, we're doing pretty fine. Keep sending in. We're definitely on the aggressive here in this post-Wrath world. And we did hit that 7th mana to get some more 4/4s out. A massive field at this point. Expel to kill one of our 4/4s. We still have 2 4/4s and a 2/2 flyer, and that will be the concession from our opponent. 3-2 off of the 0-2 start. So a really nice comeback here. Happy to see that. I was feeling a little bit down on the 0-2 start there. I was like, oh, this deck seems kind of good. Got a lot of nice cards in blue and red. Seemed like a pretty decent decent build here. Decent opening and everything. And then yeah, we have turned it around. No matter what, we're perfectly even. Nice average run here, so that is always nice. Kind of the reverse of how my last couple drafts have gone, where it was like 3-0 at the start and then it turns into a 3-3 at the end. Alright, round 6. Here we go. Definite keep, Blood Age General turn 2, Frost Trickster turn 3, Draconic Intervention maybe in the late game. Don't have any instants or sorceries to use that yet, but we have a lot in our deck, as you can tell by the low creature count in general. Got that decent curve out, just a 2-2 on the ground on turn 2 and a 2-2 flyer in the skies turn 3. I think I do like that here, because we're very unlikely to use Draconic Intervention for quite a while. We just don't have an instant or sorcery we can cast till turn 8 currently. Although our start also doesn't get super aggressive. We're not playing a creature turn 4 here, so it's not the perfect curve out. Not going to play another creature till turn 5. Really don't like the trade with the Historian. It's trading a 2-2 into a 2-1, and the 2-1 can come back later on as a 3-2. So really no reason to offer that trade there. We have 5 mana, so we're 3 away from Explosive Welcome. May actually be happening this game early on. We'll find out. Heated Debate to kill the flyer. Pretty much stops all of our pressure. Probably just going to be an old school standoff now. Yep, it's looking like it. Do I drop the 3-4 onto the board? Its ability isn't going to do anything here. The only reason not to play it would be if I'm planning to Draconic Intervention, and still doesn't seem like the plan, so I guess I will play it here, and if they don't play any more creatures, it does start slapping them for 3 if nothing else. If we draw into a decent instant or sorcery, we can even do the multiple impulsive draw off of it. If we draw a pop quiz or one of our like +3/+1 trample spells. I'm still definitely learning all of the names of the cards in the format, but I just don't have a great memory. I think even in Call Time, I never called everything by its name. It was just like, oh yeah, the +1/+1 hexproof spell. This is fraud. White, black, red, +3/+1 trample here. So it's still a trade if I block here. It's still a trade if I block here and they use the pump if it's the +3/+1 trample and learn. What else could it be though? I guess off of white it could be +2/+2 hexproof. Off of black it could be +1/+1 counter. I feel like it ends a lot worse for me for most pump spells if I block with my 3-4. Although this could be that they have the +3/+1 trample spell, and if I make this block, they just won't cast it. They'll just be like, okay, trade. Yeah, I can just take this here. I mean, they're at 16, I'm at 20. We can go to 18 and then just crack back. That was, I don't know, that was some kind of fraudulent activity there. And I'm not really into that. Just gonna go to my turn. Okay. Ooh, we did draw the Enthusiastic Study for the Ardent Dust Speaker. So I am gonna cast this pre-combat so that I can get the value off of a Dust Speaker's ability when it attacks. And I could get a Spirit Summoning just to dump a creature out right now, or an Elemental Summoning to do it next turn. I think I'd grab the Elemental Summoning because Ardent Dust Speaker is going to draw cards when it attacks if an attack resolves here. Okay, and it does. So now I can cast whatever I impulsively draw here. Oh, Crackle with Power. Oh, goodbye, my sweet mythic rare. But Flame Scroll Celebrant, not a bad draw at all. Being able to draw anything off of the Dust Speaker is definitely just a good time there. Here comes a Spiteful Squad from our opponent. Okay. We have 6 mana. If I play this land, we have 7. Could play the land, cast Elemental Summoning, attack all here, and then Ardent Dustspeaker can draw us another card because we'll have put an instant or sorcery in our grave. Attack all pushes in for at least 2 damage, which puts them to 6 life. Explosive Welcome hits them for 5, that would put them to 1. Depending on how they block here, I might be able to push in for lethal off of an Explosive Welcome in the future. So if I Elemental Summoning here, hold 2 up. If they don't block Flame Scroll Celebrant, I hit for 4, and they go to 4 life, and then they die to an Explosive Welcome. If they don't block Dustspeaker, I hit for 3, put them to 5, and they die to an Explosive Welcome. But I'm pretty sure those are the 2 creatures they block, so we just push in for 2, put them to 6 here. But we do get all of their creatures off the board while maintaining a 2/2 and a 4/4 on our board. So this is certainly a fine aggressive attack. Especially when we have the spell to deal 5 damage to their face. Making it very likely that we can punch in for lethal if we hit our 8th mana for Explosive Welcome. Rise of Exodus, so we do hit for 3 on board. 1 land would be lethal immediately, and even if we don't hit the land immediately, they're unlikely to have life gain like super quickly here. Pest tokens will work. Here is the mana from Letter of Acceptance, so that we can cast Explosive Welcome next turn. So we hit for 3 now, put them to 3 life. Explosive Welcome on our next turn will be lethal, and without any blue mana, I highly doubt they have a way to stop the Explosive Welcome. They do have a white mana, so we need to be worried about Mana Tithe potentially from the Mystical Archives, but I doubt that that would be getting run here off of the splash, and it looks like white is the splash here. So Draconic Intervention to kill all our creatures. We know the card well. And if they tap out, alright, I was going to say if they tap out, then we are home free. We know we're safe to Explosive Welcome. That will be 4 and 3. I'm sorry, 4 and 2. I keep writing my losses before they've counted. I always say like, all right, we're 4-3. No, we're 4-2. Or we're 3-3. No, we're 3-2. So 4 and 3, a little bit above average now for this Prismari deck. Definitely panned out pretty well that game. And we are now heading into round 7. Got that memory lapse. This might be the first time. Actually, I did cast it one time, but it wasn't super memorable. Here's a card I want to try out more. Here, this is a really slow hand, but we have the memory lapse to slow them down, then Serpentine Curve will be a 2/2 on turn 4. That is pretty small. I guess we could discard Elemental Masterpiece to cast Serpentine Curve earlier, and it would be a 3/3 at that point, or we could use it for like Dustspeaker mana. Yeah, I mean, the fact that we have both colors here is pretty massive to make like almost any draw solid, so I'm going to keep it. And we did draw Frost Trickster, which is very good. Ooh, and a Flame Scroll Celebrant. Unfortunately, that card is very, very bad against Pest tokens, and they just played 1 Pest token turn 2, and they're going to play 2 more on turn 3. Flame Scroll Celebrant, pretty awful on this board, to the point where I'm not even going to cast it. I would rather hold up a Memory Lapse than just trade a 2/1 into a 1/1. So we are against Silver Quill, black and white, with a lot of Witherbloom cards, Hunt for Specimens plus Pest Summoning. Get the 1/1s out. I could slow them down, make them skip their next draw step here. That actually seems fine to me, because I'm not really going to want to be holding up the mana in the future, because they have a good curve on every other turn. You know, I have Frost Trickster turn 3, Serpentine Curve turn 4, Ardent Dustspeaker turn 5, and even as a 2/2, Serpentine Curve can block those Pest tokens all day long. Team Pennant to equip their creature tokens and make them 2/2s. Well, now Serpentine Curve is a lot worse. So I think I play the Curate plus Flame Scroll Celebrant here. Drawn to a Tome Shredder or a Mountain. How good is Tome Shredder? We've got one in grave right now. Curate's going to go into the grave. Tome Shredder is pretty good here, but so is the Mountain. I think I put neither into the grave. Draw the Mountain first. Tome Shredder as our next turn play. So we curated during our turn there because we didn't have any other instants to hold up, and if we curate during our turn, if we draw a different like 2-mana card that we want to play, we can do that instead of the Celebrant. Like if we drew a 2/2 for 2, we would much rather play that than the Flame Scroll Celebrant. This Flame Scroll Celebrant does just sit here and do a damage to them every now and then randomly, but not super worth the trade with their creature tokens. Kind of just gonna be hanging out for a second, I think. So we can play Ardent Dustspeaker to just get a 3/4 immediately. Tome Shredder would be a 3/3 when it blocks. They are Silver Quill, so I do have to be worried about removal. Would I rather they kill Dustspeaker or Tome Shredder? Honestly, probably Dustspeaker. Because this is a 3/4 forever. Tome Shredder is a 3/3 the first time it blocks and a 4/4 the next turn. Yeah, just tap all out, get the Dustspeaker out. Playing the Dustspeaker first also leaves us open to drawing a 2-mana creature, where we could play Tome Shredder and the 2-mana creature and get multiple blockers out later. If they don't end up playing any other creatures, then holding this Flame Scroll Celebrant's going to look a little awkward. Because then it's like, well, it's just going to end up trading with a Pest token anyway. The idea behind saving Flame Scroll Celebrant is that it can block like any creature later, and if we have the Fire Breathing mana up, it can like trade up into a 6 toughness creature if we have 4 mana up. It's like trading into a Pest token does feel so bad, but if it's going to keep hitting us for 2 a turn, but then they can just move the Pennant onto another one that's hitting us for 2 a turn, so I still feel like we don't make that trade. And there we go. I am happy with the Dustspeaker before Tome Shredder, because now we did draw a 2-mana creature, so we can dump both out. I'll play Tome Shredder first, just in case we are playing against like the Mana Tithe here. It is a thing that can happen. But it is pretty rare. And Soothsayer Adept also just a great blocker here. A 1/3 to block the 1/1s, and we have a 3/3 to block the 2/2s, so that might just stop all of their aggression now, unless they have more removal, which, I mean, Silver Quill, white and black, those are some removal colors right there. And Study Break, the great aggressive learn card here. Tapping down 2 of our creatures and learning another lesson. So there goes our blocks there. Environmental Sciences is the lesson they grab here. So they grab a basic land of any type. Grabbing another Plains, so not splashing in anything there. This is so... With how long these Pest tokens have been able to get in, like, it was probably going to be best... to just have traded off Flame Scroll Celebrant immediately. But I feel like at this point it's going to be so hard for them to get in. Right, we have a 4/4, a 1/3, and a 3/3 to block with. So are we finally stabilized against just the Pest tokens? The Pest tokens alone have gotten us down to 9 life. Feeling very pestered this game. It's not a good time. We have 2 more instants and sorceries for Tome Shredder to make it a 5/5. What is going on here? Stop eating me, pests. What on earth? Maybe it's a Wrath effect, and they're like, well, they're going to die anyway, so we'll try to get damage in. I don't know what the buff the whole field kind of spells are, because I feel like they aren't played often. I know there's one in Silver Quill, but it's sorcery speed. They have the defend thing that's like +1/+1 to everybody at instant speed, but that would not do anything with this block. Yeah, just make the block. See what we get blown out by here. I guess it is a Wrath effect because they were just like, all right, pass. Oh, wow. The literal Day of Judgment. That is super solid. What do I have in my deck? Is there anything in our deck that's better than Elemental Masterpiece? Because if there is, we should draw discard here. But I don't think there is. I think Elemental Masterpiece is straight up the best card to have in hand right now, so if we draw a land, we can get right back in there after the Wrath. Yeah, there's really not, so let's not draw a discard, because then we're just going to mill ourselves one. Basically, if there's a single card in your deck that's even 1% better than the card that's currently in your hand, it's still good to loot when you only have one card in hand. But if you have the best card in your deck in your hand, then it's not. Nice. So the Elemental Mastery, while they are all dead, did accomplish a lot for us. It got rid of 2 of their removal spells there. So that's pretty good. I'm going to hold on to this land. If I draw any of my learn cards, it's possible I want to draw discard. Like, if they go really wide here, I'd rather discard a card and draw than learn a lesson, because I'd get a single blocker, whereas I could draw into like a Wrath effect. Whirlwind Denial's not going to do it here. We are going to take 4, so we've got 2 turns here. Down to 5 now. So here's our first draw step. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I could have countered that. I just spammed through the turn. I should have countered that. Hardcore, because that does put it to lethal here. We'll see if it would have mattered here. Hopefully it wouldn't matter, because that was pretty embarrassing. We just slammed the Whirlwind Denial and countered the bird. So that we just take 4 next turn. That gives us 1 more turn to survive. I was just slamming there. Yeah, it wouldn't really matter. So we would counter that, and then we take 4, go to 1. Or chump block and take 2, go to 3, and then we die to 1 more turn. So I guess it matters on what is the very top card of our deck. We could have drawn an out to this if we had just Whirlwind Denial. I guess we don't die immediately. So at the very least, we get to see what's next. And see if we could have gotten out there if I didn't just slam through the casting phase. Okay, it was just a land. So if I cast Whirlwind Denial, we're just dead this turn either way. Alright. Definitely not ideal at the end there. Just not casting Whirlwind Denial, just, I don't know, just cuz. Just slamming the pass button. But, as we saw, did not change the outcome of the game at least, so. That would have been a massive field bad. So, this Prismari deck did end up being pretty alright, which is how I thought it looked. I thought it looked pretty solid in terms of the big bombing kind of rares and stuff, but in terms of like consistency and synergy and stuff, it's definitely lacking a bit. I feel like that is where our sealed pool is definitely lacking, because like our creature count is not very high, and we do have to run some creatures that are kind of mediocre in this deck, like Stormkiln Artist. Soothsayer Adept actually ended up being pretty solid, but like Blood Age Generals with no spirits definitely ended up with some mediocre creatures just to fill out the deck. We had to play like the Enthusiastic Studies to be able to grab lessons even with the low creature count. I guess we didn't have to do that, but again, like the other options in blue and red, the colors just like were pretty powerful, but not incredibly deep in terms of the number of cards. So we did end up running some mediocre stuff, but that happens a lot in sealed. And I think even with that, even with having to run some mediocre lukewarm cards here, it was still definitely worth it to be in these colors. I think these are probably the best colors in the pool, just again with Crackle with Power, Prismari, Command, Time Warp, just big spells like that. Explosive Welcome even Ended up being very good in multiple of the games that we won. It is a ton of mana, but as we've seen today, sealed in this format in particular as well, does tend to be slow enough that this card can get there in the end, chip in for that extra bit of damage to finish your opponent off. So pretty solid sealed event overall, not bad at all. I think the probably best other way we could have gone here would have been Silver Quill, obviously with multiple Silver Quill modal rares. That would have been pretty good. Shale and Selfless Glyph Weaver. And we'll take a look at how that would have looked. I think it would have looked pretty solid, pretty similar, where we do have to end up running some mediocre cards to fill the deck out, to where it's not like perfectly consistent, but it's a fun deck overall. Yeah, like this is 20 cards now, and I feel like I've put in everything that isn't like utter trash. Oh, I guess I did forget about the hybrid cards. So we do have Witherbloom Pledge Mage we could play in here. I did check the hybrid cards for the Prismari deck though, and there was nothing there that I would want to main deck. Just the good lessons for the side. I don't think we play Exhilarating Elocution in this deck. Maybe we throw in like a Beaming Defiance. What's our creature count for this deck? Still just 13 creatures for this deck. Are there any more creatures that we're not throwing in here? Tenured Inkcaster. This seems so expensive for what it does. Like a 5-mana 3/3. If you put the counter on it, whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on attacks, each opponent loses a life and gains 1 life. And you gain 1 life. So the idea behind this is you play this at the top end of your curve so that you've chipped away for enough damage that now you can just send everything in for a chump attack and hit them for the final 4 or 5. But I feel like it just is not going to pan out for like that very often. And its power and toughness is so low for the cost. But I guess, yeah, again, Silver Quill is not that deep in terms of the cards that we have, to the point where we would just probably throw those in there and try them out here just to get a higher creature count, most likely. So yeah, I think the Silver Quill deck, actually, you know, it's arguable. I think Silver Quill would have looked pretty much equivalent in power level to the Prismari deck, just because we have like great removal in Silver Quill, really setting it up for success. Flunk, Expel, and 2 Umbral Juke being really good. Some of the things in Silver Quill are a bit awkward, like these Tenured Inkcasters I don't love. I don't love Shale in the deck with just 13 creatures if we're not running Inkcasters, 15 if we are, especially because it doesn't curve out super well. The greatest thing that Shale can do is when you've got the 3 drops and 4 drops to curve out with it. So Shale would mainly be Embrose, which, yeah, Embrose is probably the better sealed card for sure. Yeah, a bit slow here, but we have all that cheap removal to survive. Definitely had a solid Silver Quill deck as an option as well. I guess if we plan on playing Embrose, we could take the Inkcasters out, because now we don't need that high of a creature count. And Stonebinder's Familiar really doesn't do anything. It's a 1-mana 1/1 in this color pair, so we would take that out, and we need to throw one more mediocre card in here. Again, just at the end here, just for fun, theory crafting on the next best deck. We could splash in a little Witherbloom, just splash in a Mortality Spear here and run our Letter of Acceptance and Archway for the splash as well. Yeah, it seems cool. Kind of Crushing Disappointment, I guess. We have 3 lands here, so this is the 17 land deck. Alright. Yeah, if we didn't play Prismari, I think this would be about the deck that I would try to go with, do that Silver Quill kind of thing. This one, also kind of a slow deck, but this one with some better cheap removal. Flunk, Umbral Jukes, Expels, and then when we get to the late game, we have the same thing going for us, where we have that 1 Wrath effect, but this, it's Deadly Vanity, potentially. And this does have some better, like, just creatures, like 2 Witherbloom Pledge Mage, 3 Combat Professor. It's pretty solid, and the Embrose. So yeah, that would be the other deck I may may have tried out for this sealed pool. But that will end today's sealed event. Let's go ahead and check out our prizes before I close out of the video. And as always, if you're interested in more of this content, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. All of that good stuff that lets the YouTube algorithm know that you're interested in the content and want to see more. Ooh, Ecological Appreciation. I have never seen this card before in my life, but that is the artwork that they use on the Premier Draft events, so that's cool. Search your library and graveyard for up to 4 creatures with different names of mana value X or less, reveal them. An opponent chooses 2, shuffle them into your library, put the rest on the battlefield. So you search for 4 creatures and they give you the 2 worst ones? That's probably still good and limited, right? That's a really hard card to assess, but that's pretty cool. You play it for like 6 mana, you get your worst... You choose your best creatures that cost 4 or less, and they give you the worst 2? I don't know about that. I don't know, it's a weird one. I have played with the Daemogoth Titan before, definitely underperformed, not a big fan of that one. Multiple Choice, however, is a fantastic limited card. So that will end the pack opening, and we have made it to the very end of the video now. If you're still around, then I don't know what you're still doing here. Go check out another video or something if you still want to watch more Magic. But yeah, thank you everybody very much for watching, and as always, I will see you again very soon for some more Magic Arena.